My name is GM Blue, and I'm a challenger from set 8.5 and 8, and I want to give you a quick overview of itemization for carries in set 9. The reason I'm putting this together is I plan to take set 9 quite seriously, and doing a video like this is good review for me as well. Keep in mind this is released before PvE is even live, and certainly before the launch of set 9, so we don't have any stats yet to verify these items. This is just based on reading the descriptions of every single champion in the game and getting a feel for what will work for them based on prior sets. So let's go ahead and get started with standard strategy. So on the AD side of things, so if you had to build AD items in the early game, because that's what you were given, you really have four options. The first option is Aphelios, the second option is Urgot, the third option is Yasuo, and the fourth option is Zeri. So let's get started here with Zeri. So Zeri is a ranged AD unit. She's a gunner, which means that she has stacking AD. That's particularly meaningful because stacking AD usually means that Runons is going to be a very good item on her. In general, any AD items are going to be good on her. So if we look at, for example, Samira from set 8.5 and set 8, these are the items that are best on her, and we would expect those to probably be very good on Zeri as well, because Samira was also a unit that had stacking AD. So we have Runons as being one of the best items, Last Whisper, Guardbreaker, Hextech Gunblade, Giant Slayer, Infinity Edge, Hodge, Deathblade, Edge of Night, and so on and so forth. So these are your typical AD items that you would expect to perform well on an AD champion. Now Zeri has sort of a unique circumstance where she also has these mods, or these chem mods that she gets from Zon, and those chem mods might have slight modifications on what works best with her. So if I pull those up real quick, you have Simmer Injector here, which gives her base attack speed. You have Robotic Arm, which has her shoot additional attacks. And then I believe this one is basically a Hodge. So there's different effects that might slightly change what this is, but for the most part, you're just looking at AD items on Zeri, okay? Let's go to the other ranged AD champion, which is Aphelios. And one thing that's unique about him is that his ability causes him to shoot this big blast, and based on how many enemies he hits, he equips these chakrams, and that empowers his auto attacks over the next 7 seconds. Now, why that's important is that in set 8 and 8.5, we really didn't have a good AD Runa or a Rageblade holder. And the reason for that is because, number one, Rageblade really works best when the champion has an ability that scales with auto attacks. We didn't really have too many of those. Number two, it works best when the champion does not have a channeled ability. That is, it stops them from autoing. That makes sense, right? And we really had most of the AD carries like Samira or Ultimate Ezreal. These are like channeled abilities, and it takes them a little bit before they get back to autoing again. So Aphelios is a little bit different here, where Rageblade is probably going to be very good on him. Otherwise, you're looking at the same typical AD items that I just listed for Samira. So as usual, Last Whisper is going to probably be good. Guardbreaker is going to be good. Giant Slayer. In fact, with Aphelios in particular, Giant Slayer is probably going to be very good because of his trait Deadeye, where he's going to attack the enemy with the highest percentage HP and deal bonus damage. Now, he has a range of 5 because of this Deadeye trait giving +1 range, but that's still not enough to hit the backline. Maybe it can hit... I'm pretty sure it can't even hit the same corner of the backline. One thing that's interesting is whether or not he would be able to hit the backline if you third row him. I haven't tried that yet, or haven't seen anybody really try that yet. But for now, the way you should look at it is he's probably going to hit those tanks that are the highest HP because of the way he's positioned. And so Giant Slayer might be pretty good on him. It kind of depends. And Guardbreaker is probably going to be very good on him as well. So typical AD items for Aphelios and Zeri here. Now, when we get into Urgot, you're looking at your typical AD items. Same thing with Yasuo, or your melee carry items. So Titans is probably going to be very good. Titans in particular with Urgot is, I think, going to be exceptional because he has pretty good AP scaling with his shield. Outside of that, you're looking at healing items. So BT, Hodge are going to be quite good on them. Likely, again, likely is the case. IE will probably be good on them as well. Again, all the same items that you currently see on AD champions that are melee carries. So those are your AD units. Now we're going to move into our AP units here. So we have Azir, Gwen, Lux, and Kai'Sa as your primary AP carries. Azir is pretty similar to Twisted Fate right now, where he's an auto attack based champion, where every third attack he has a soldier that deals damage, and he summons a bunch of sand soldiers, and once he has 3 of them, they do more damage, basically. So he's an auto attack based champion. It means he's probably going to want to be itemized the exact same way that TF is itemized right now. That means bow items. So Shiv is going to be very good, Giant Slayer is going to be good, Gwynsus is probably going to be good, and a bunch of AP items are going to perform well on him. And you can see the list here of different options that you have available for you. When it comes to Gwen, she's a little bit different, where she is a melee carry based AP unit. She's not exactly melee. You can see here that her range is 2, but she's going to be close range most of the time. She probably is going to benefit the most from blue buff because she only has 35 base mana, and every 3 cast she gets a lot of armor and MR, which is going to make her a lot tankier, which is going to make her survive for longer. So I would say best in slot for Gwen is going to be blue buff, healing item, and any AP item out there. Obviously, Zanya's is probably going to be insane on Gwen, just like it has been for most AP melee carry units. So Gwen, pretty straightforward here. I think blue buff is going to be very important. One other note that I have for her is that for her traits, both of her traits are very valuable. So the Shadow Isles trait is basically like a Titan's Resolve that finish stacking at 8, and they get a big shield, and they start generating mana every second for the rest of combat. So she's just going to get more cast, and she's going to proc that armor and MR more often. And then with Slayer, they get 15% Omnivamp. This bonus damage really doesn't matter all that much, I'm pretty sure, but the 15% Omnivamp is probably going to be quite helpful for her. So playing 2 Slayer and 2 Shadow Isles is probably going to be worth, at the very least, for Gwen. Now moving on to Kai'Sa. Now Kai'Sa is a unit that we have gotten used to as being good with like Rageblade, for example, but in this iteration of Kai'Sa, you're really just focused on AP and probably Shojin as well. She has a lot of mana, 120 in total. That's the same amount of mana that MF currently has, and MF is almost practically unplayable if you don't have Shojin. You could obviously maybe also play like Invokers or something else to make it so that she can cast more than once per fight, but I'm pretty sure you're going to want to have Shojin, maybe like Archangel, and any other AP items on Kai'Sa. And then lastly here we have Lux. Lux is kind of unique in that she is a dot-based champion, so her magic damage is dealt over the course of 3 seconds, and 6 seconds in case of the 3-star version, but if you have 3-star Lux, you're probably doing just fine. So because it's a dot, she's not going to be a unit that wants like super fast fights. You're probably going to want to have very strong frontline for her, and because she does scale relatively well with AP because it's a dot, I'm guessing something like Archangels is going to be quite good on her. And then maybe Gunblade is going to be good on her as well. She's a little bit different. We don't really have anything in the last set that was like super similar to this. So I'm curious to know how well she's going to perform. But just keep in mind that in her case in general, you're probably going to want to have quite a tanky frontline. Otherwise, she's probably not going to do a whole lot. She also has built-in MR Shred, so maybe it's not a very good MR Shred because it's only 10 per second. So it's not as good as something like Shiv, but it is built-in Shred at the very least. So those are your primary carries here. When it comes to AD and AP units, those are going to be your standard options. Then we move into the 5 cost. So on the 5 cost side of things, you have your AD carries, so that's going to be Aatrox and Bel'Veth, and kind of Senna, but not really, to be honest with you. I don't think Senna is going to be a real carry. So you have Aatrox and Bel'Veth. Aatrox is an actual unit. This is a melee carry. You're just going to want to put all of the AD and maybe like Titans, your typical AD melee carry items. So Titans is going to be good. Infinity Edge is going to be good. I wouldn't be surprised if things like Deathblade are good. And obviously any Ornn items like Death's Defiance are going to be amazing on him. BT is probably very good as well. One thing to note with Aatrox is that because of this Darken ability, basically when he dies, he passes his blade to somebody else. And if that other person lives for 4 seconds, he will revive on their death. Okay, and so one thing that's interesting about that is I haven't seen this in action yet, so I can't verify if this is true or not. But if the BT shield procs each time he revives, then Bloodthirster is probably going to be best in slot. I don't know how that's all going to work, so just keep that in mind. Maybe he doesn't even revive with items. I don't know how that works, so just keep that in mind. When it comes to Belveth here, Belveth is a unit that is probably going to be a tank shredder because she deals a percentage of their max health as true damage. And for the most part, she is a unit that scales with AD and attack speed. I think she's going to be one of the more interesting cases in the game where it's hard to identify exactly what's best in slot without actually seeing it in game. I'm sure Triforce, for example, is going to be very good on her, but that's an Ornn item. Titans is probably going to be good on her. Healing items are going to be quite good on her. So Bloodthirster, Gunblade, Hodge, all of those are going to be great options on her. Just kind of like her current iteration, just a little bit stronger and probably a better tank shredder than her current version. Obviously, her current version has attack speed scaling, and this doesn't have that. But still, worth noting that this is something that will probably work with a bunch of different things. Also worth noting that, again, Rageblade might actually be good with this, depending on whether or not these lashes, this is one of the big questions with Belveth that we need to pay close attention to, is whether or not each lash contributes towards or is considered an auto attack, sort of like how Warwick works, where if they are considered auto attacks, then things like Titans are going to be very good, Runon's is going to be very good, and Rageblade will probably be good as well because of the scaling here, where she gets more lashes the higher her attack speed is. And then on the Senna side of things, the reason I don't think she's going to be an AD carry is because even though she basically fires this beam that goes across the entire board, and it deals damage, physical damage to everybody, you can put AD items on her, but the thing is, the amount of damage that she does is so low that I really don't expect it to be that insane. And her base AD here is basically the same as a 4 cost. She's not given like 5 cost AD. So she's going to be an AD carry. You can play her like an AD carry, but I don't know how strong she's really going to be without seeing her in practice. Then you have Scion here, which I really don't think is going to be something that you really want to itemize as an attack damage carry. He's more of just sort of, you just throw your tank items on him, and yeah, he's probably going to kill some things, but for the most part, like, he's a CC bot and a big meat shield. So those are your standard carries. And then let me go into real quick the AP carries here. So you have Ahri. Ahri is, I don't know how good the damage that she deals is going to be. It's probably going to be okay. She really wants blue buff. The main thing about her is that she does AoE Shroud effect. She AoE Mana Reaves. So she's going to be splashable in every single comp, I'm pretty sure, especially if you just have like a random blue buff that you had to slam in early game, but maybe you don't want to quite play full AP. Ahri is going to be an excellent holder of that blue buff. Heimerdinger is another one that's a little bit weird because a lot of his power comes from the Apex turret that he summons, and I'm not exactly sure that turret shares his AP, so his actual ability doesn't seem to do that much AP. It's just mostly like a stun. But the Apex turret might do a decent amount of AP. So he's going to probably be another AP option for you. And then lastly here we have Rise. Rise has 10 different abilities. He has a lot of different abilities that change based on the location of the portal that you guys pick at the beginning of the game. And so when it comes to Rise, you're probably going to want to itemize him with either Shojin or some like Archangel, maybe Rabadons, but probably not, because it really depends on the different portals that he has. Some portals, like for example, the one in, what is it called? Bandle City here, his ability is literally just throwing in units, and it's like Syndra from current set. So he doesn't really benefit at all from AP. You would just have to give him like a Shojin and nothing else. So it really depends on ability to ability. And I would say in general, when it comes to Rise, he is not a unit that you want to fully itemize. You probably just want to throw a Shojin on him and call it a day. All right, now there are some versions of Rise that I think are going to be very carryable, but for the most part, he seems like a unit that you just want to throw a Shojin on and call it a day. I hope you found this preliminary Set 9 video helpful. If you enjoy videos and research of this nature, hit the subscribe button, as I'm going to be doing a lot more research on Set 9 because my goal is to become one of the best Challenger players. In particular, I want to look into the 1 cost, 2 cost, and 3 cost reroll option carries that are available. And I also want to look into positioning for this set because there is a lot of things that disarm. Well, okay, there's really one unit that does that, but there's a lot of things that do clumping targeting, a lot of AoE stuns, a lot of things that are targeted stuns that you might be able to avoid. And there seems to be several units that can target the backline in unique ways. So I'm curious to look into all of those different things and post my research here because it helps me in retaining that information so that I can hopefully get an edge on the field. So if you like that sort of thing, hit the subscribe button and I will be back every single day with Set 9 content. Hope you enjoy.